Welcome, welcome. Hey, Caitlin, how are you?
Hello.
I can hear you. Success.
Excellent. Perfect.
Good. How are you doing?
I am doing pretty well on this
Good.
beautiful sunny Friday.
Happy
How are
Friday.
You?
Yeah, you have sun up there, huh?
It's actually nice. I mean, it's been raining a lot for the past few weeks. So yesterday I went out for dinner and I was just like, we have to sit outside just because like it's been raining this whole time. And yeah, I really want to experience the sunshine for a minute.
That's nice. Yeah, down here in Raleigh, we're like just starting to get those like really hot, like 100% humidity days.
Ooh.
But then yesterday and today are like, I don't know, like something like in the 70s. And there was like a breeze this morning. Kind of reminds me of upstate New York. It was like,
yeah,
this is why people live up in the north. They get summers like this.
That's so true. Honestly, I can't go back. I mean, I grew up in Oklahoma and we had that. I mean, the weather there's always terrible. Like it's never good no matter what the season is because it's just like the Midwest. But I can't, the summers, I can't do it anymore.
Yeah.
I lived it.
Yeah, I joke that I'm from Florida originally and we moved to North Carolina. My husband's from New Hampshire and we joked that like North Carolina is like halfway in between us. And we get the best of both worlds because like I can't handle snow, but I also don't love it being 90. Like I like seasons, you know? And so Raleigh's our compromise.
That's super nice. I've never been. I look forward to being there.
Well, we'll see you in September.
Take it all in. Yeah. I'm really excited.
Awesome. We are too. Well, welcome everyone. Happy Friday. We will give people maybe a few more minutes and then we'll do some introductions and get into it.
Excellent.
Caitlin, are y'all doing anything this weekend?
Are we? Yes. My husband's sister has been visiting us this week. So she came in last weekend, but we'll probably just hang out and do something chill tomorrow. And then on Sunday, we're going to New York City for the day.
Fun.
One of our fave hobbies that we have not had a chance to do for quite some time.
A while. Yeah.
So yeah, we'll just take the train down in the morning, the Amtrak, and then come back like the same night. Mm-hmm. And it's about like a 2.5 hour one-way trip. So it's kind of perfect for just going down to, see people or do stuff.
Something. Yeah,
food,
that's great.
Whatever.
That's great. That's not a bad train ride either. So
no. Nice. It's Troy's a great place to live, honestly, because it's like 3 hours from everywhere. It's like Boston over here, Montreal, New York City, etc. Pretty good.
Yeah, we before we were in Raleigh here, my husband and I lived in Connecticut, kind of middle of nowhere, really small town. The town itself there wasn't a ton to do, but kind of the same thing. We realized that like we were like an hour and a half on the train in New York City or like a 2-hour drive to Boston. And it was like the best of both worlds. We could get some city life without paying.
Yeah, it was like, it's a lot more affordable.
Totally.
Having lived in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
It's quite different.
Awesome. Cool. Well, welcome everybody. Happy Friday. My name is Maren Hayes. I am a producer at Dash. And today on our Mograph lunch, we have Caitlin Cadieux. Caitlin is a designer, an illustrator, an animator, currently part of the motion team for the Vox Explained series. It's on Netflix, which some of y'all have seen, I'm sure. Previously, she worked on the video team at the Atlantic magazine and with a stint at remote creative production studio Secret Powers, working on video game advertising. She also hosts the podcast Cartoon Feelings with comic artist Ira Marks, which is super fun if y'all haven't heard. They explore their many feelings, good and bad, about the world of animation and cartoons. So welcome, Caitlin.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, yay. Awesome. So for those who have listened to our Mograph lunches in the past, we do kind of a series of news, portfolio projects, and then our industry topic, which in this case, our topic is Caitlin. So we'll get into the work that you're doing. So to get us started, I don't know, Caitlin, some of the news that we were chatting about was the Maxon combo subscription for cinema. I don't know, you said that you were kind of just starting to dig into that after not doing some 3D work in a few years. How have you found that?
I've missed it so much. I didn't realize. And so I feel bad because I don't know. I'm really out of the loop on this and I haven't had enough time to really get back into it. But yeah, as you said, I was doing a decent amount of 3D, like 2D style 3D when I was at the Atlantic. And then when I left to go to Secret Powers, we just weren't really working in anything 3D anymore. And I kind of was like, well, this is a bummer, but like maybe I'm just moving away from this and I'm not doing 3D work anymore. And then I found some cool opportunities to use it at Vox that I'm excited about. It's all current season stuff, so not out yet, and I can't really like be specific, but they don't really have any 3D in any of the previous Vox Explained series or miniseries. And so I was like, oh, I can like do this and I can do that, and that'll be like really fun and cool. And like, it's just been so thrilling. Plus, I just like re-upped my well, I had never subscribed. Like I stopped when it was still, you just buy the software. It was like R20, I think was the last one that I had. And so this was the first time where I've like maxed on a Red Giant or a combo, and I'm going to sign up for this subscription, but it feels very powerful to have all the Red Giant stuff and everything all at once. I switched to PC a couple years ago too. And like, honestly, in anticipation of maybe going freelance at that point and doing a lot more 3D. And then my career just totally didn't go that way at all. So now it feels good that I can actually use all that. Like I have not opened Redshift in any capacity. And I really don't understand that stuff yet, to be honest, because everything I do is pretty much 2D style 3D. But I'm excited that I now actually can do that.
Yeah, just in terms of like workflow too. I mean, I got to think that that's just going to be a huge help for people.
Yeah, it's exciting.
Awesome. Cool. Well, you know, as we get into more of a discussion from the audience, if y'all have worked with the new update yet, please let us know the good, the bad, what y'all have experienced. Next, what we were going to talk about is the portfolio project. I hope that y'all have all seen the Carrier, which Ivy put out, gosh, I think it was late last week. If you haven't, you should go to thecarrier.tv and check out the trailer. Essentially, Ivy has described this as The Carrier is an animated mystery drama series created by Zach Dixon and Seth Worley. It follows the only postal worker in a remote Alaskan town where a mailman have been disappearing for decades. And if y'all have not seen the trailer yet, first you should go do that right now. I mean, you can listen to us, but then go do it. The trailer is awesome. The quality of the light and it looks beautiful. And Ivy has been putting out some behind the scenes kind of stuff on their Instagram. So if y'all haven't checked that out, you should go look at that. Caitlin, I don't know, what did you think when you first saw it?
It's so cool. I love it. So I didn't really know them. I just like saw it. And I didn't know what to expect. So I was just like, wait, what? As it was going on. And it's funny because I didn't really know until after I'd seen it that like they made this in Unity and they're doing all this stuff. But it was funny because at first I was like, is this a video game? Because I really want to play this so badly. And I'm not disappointed that it's not. Although I would absolutely play the video game of this. And there's a video game that I never really played because I was never into like the survival type video games, but my husband has played this game called The Long Dark, I think. And it's sort of like this where you're like surviving out in the wilderness. And at first I was watching it and being like, oh, it kind of looks like that. Oh, that's neat. But then it took the kind of like horror turn and I was like, I'm very invested. Like, and also just the quality of this is unbelievable. Like if you go to the website of it, thecarrier.tv, and they have like storyboards, like black and white, like really detailed storyboards on here and the concept art. And I also didn't realize that Tony Hale was the voice of like, it's like, what? I don't know. It's really cool.
Yeah. The whole thing is beautiful. I mean, and the time, like, you know, from like a producing standpoint, I just want to be like, when, like,
how do you do this?
How do you do this? I mean, on top of all the other great work that they're putting out. I'm
very intimidated by Ivy in a good way.
Yeah.
They're cool, but like just doing the coolest stuff, like so different all the time and like to such a high level.
Caliber. Yeah, totally. Yeah. The work is just great. So again, if y'all haven't, thecarrier.tv, go check it out, watch the trailer. And then on their Instagram, yeah, they have a ton of behind the scenes kind of stuff that you should check out because it's just beautiful. And like oddly makes me want to go to Alaska, although like maybe that's not at all what it should.
Maybe you shouldn't though.
maybe not this town, and don't be a mail carrier because bad stuff would happen.
It's like risky biz to me.
Yeah, but it's just beautiful.
Yeah, like it says they're being actively pitched right now, and I'm like,
yes.
It just doesn't. To me, I'm like, no, this is sold already, and they're making it.
Yeah,
I just
and like
can't understand that. So cool.
To your point, I mean, I just really see the kind of like video game aspect too. So I mean, who knows? We'll cross our fingers that maybe like after the film, they would make it into a video game. Cool.
Let me explore this very creepy
world.
Let me deliver the mail.
Yeah, and you have to not die. Cool. Well, y'all should all go check it out. And then we are going to jump in to questions for Caitlin. So kind of already did an introduction of you, but what about your introduction to the animation world, to the design world? Kind of when did you discover that?
Well, so I'll condense this. I've told this story in detail in other places, I'm sure, in the past, but like I always wanted to be an animator essentially. And I feel like even when I was like a wee baby, like I knew I wanted to be like a 2D Disney character animator. So that's like sort of where it started. And my childhood dream job was that. And then, I grew up and that was like, it went away. They don't do that really anymore so much. And then I couldn't afford to go to SCAD. I wanted to go to SCAD so badly to be a 3D character animator. And then I found out how much it costs. And I was like, no, I will rethink this. And that's why I went into graphic design. So I went to state school, University of Oklahoma. It was like 45 minutes away from my parents' house, like where I grew up. And I just went there and they didn't have like an animation program or anything like that. So I was like, I'll do graphic design because it's kind of has a little bit of everything I like. It's artsy, but it is also, I don't know, designy, I guess. My parents feel like it's a real job, so I can do this. And then about halfway through that program, we discovered After Effects. And then I was like, I'm just going to do this now. Because I was like, oh, okay, I figured out how to get what I want. Like to just be an animator of some kind. So it was just sort of like path of least resistance a little bit. And I never, I didn't know what Mograph was when I was younger, like before that, but ever after that, it was just like the only thing that I wanted to do.
That's great. Do you feel like, and maybe it's something that most people now, of a certain age, like in the like 90s, like I just feel like the people's like vibe of like motion or cartoons, like you were saying, like, everyone was thinking like we're gonna do Disney or like, Cartoon Network, like, and do you think your parents were just like, no, like shutting that down, like because like that's not cool, like a real job, like?
No, I actually feel like they were kind of into it, but so great. It was a weird situation where I feel like my parents were always very supportive and encouraging about creative stuff. But if I had said I want to be like a painting major, they would not have been cool with that.
Got it.
So that's why I remember, I think they would have been fine with the animator thing. It's just that like the college was just, obscenely expensive.
Yeah.
And really I sort of made the call to not pursue that because of that. But I think they were on board. I just had to be like, people get paid to do this, even if it is very competitive and tough, like being a film animator, it's not, there's not like jobs everywhere all the time. But I remember sitting down with them and being like, graphic design is a real job. People get salaried positions. And just to be like, it's fine for me to do this.
Yeah, like don't worry about me. I'll be okay. See?
I thought about it, I promise. Like I will not live here longer than 1 year after college because I did live there for a year after I graduated. But
that's great. That's funny. Yeah, I feel like and this is a topic we could get into a little bit later, but like just how expensive school is, and like we talked a little bit in the past on here about like, is the cost worth it? And because there are so many more like online schools, like School of Motion and Mograph Mentor, like so many more programs that are a less traditional path than like a traditional 4-year school or art school, like just trying to figure out, for a lot of people, it's really cost prohibitive. So, is it necessarily a need? I don't think
so. Yeah, I do not regret not going. And I will say, I'm pretty transparent about this, that like my state school, OU, and me being like an in-state student, it was pretty affordable. I did not have any student loans. Like my parents paid for college. And that's looking at the calculations of going to SCAD. My parents were like, we will pay up to this amount for college. Like, this is what we can afford. And then we will take out loans for this. And it was so much. And I like, my mom is a tax lady and like a money person, and she has been for decades. And so she was like, don't do that. Like, I encourage you to not take on this debt. And I'm glad she did. And I'm still very, very privileged that I ended up coming out of a 4-year program without having any student loans. But just the fact that I personally have been able to be so much more flexible in my life choices because of that I'm glad. And so I don't think, people should feel bad for taking on debt to go to school, because we're really not given that many options. And I feel like it's generally pretty unfair. And like, I would have loved to go. Like, it definitely was like busting a dream to not be able to go to an art school like that. It was a tough decision, but it's just like, here I am still, I guess. I really do think networking is more important. I don't think it hurts to go to, there's some trade-offs maybe, and like some probably networking pros from going to a place like SCAD too. You meet everybody. But I just think it worked out. And especially, like, I didn't have School of Motion back then or anything to pursue even. So in light of that, I'm pro college in a lot of ways, but like, if you can get away with not doing it, you don't really need to,
And it's also like, it goes back to, a roadblock came up and you like found a way around it. So like, if you have, you don't want to go to an art school, or you can't afford going to art school, like kind of taking on some more of that, like ambition of trying to figure out like how you're going to make it work, or what you really want to do to like, and it's just taking that on extra to like really try and figure out how you're going to make it work. I think that's something that happens a lot more. People have to try and figure out their own path versus like, it was just like, well, you're just going to go to school and then, like you'll figure it out. Like, it's just kind of how the mentality's always been. My husband and I, we have a 4-year-old, and we are starting to save for her college because it's so stupid expensive. I hear you. We're looking at like state schools here in North Carolina because we like have some good ones. It's also like, I don't know, she's 4. I don't know, is college still gonna be a thing when she's
like, what is she gonna want to do?
What are we gonna do with all that money?
Maybe she'll be doing School of Motion.
Maybe.
Who knows?
Anyway, not to get on a totally different topic. Let's see, what about like in your kind of early on career, was there something that was like a really big influence on how you work or your style, or like kind of a mentor that you found early on that kind of helped you figure out what you wanted to do? How did you go from school to what was next?
Yeah, I went from school so I was mostly self-taught with the motion graphic stuff, because my professors were like, hey, After Effects exists, like you should do a project in it, but they didn't know how to do it. And after that, I was like, I'm just doing this now. And they like didn't really know what to do with me, but they let me do it. So I just stopped doing the same projects as like everybody else in my class and just started doing motion projects. And there was an alum from OU that came. He was freelancing in LA, and he came to the school basically like, I want to hire an intern for the summer. And so he hired me, and I went out to LA and like literally just like worked in his apartment with him on freelance projects, and he taught me how to use After Effects. So that was super helpful.
Yeah.
That was really awesome. I feel like I owe him a lot for that. And then when I graduated, I had no idea what I was doing still. I bounced around to some different freelance stuff, and then I got a job at OU, like at my college, in the marketing department, and still didn't work with anybody else that knew motion graphic stuff. And for a couple years after college, it was kind of that situation. So I was like online a lot, on Twitter a lot, trying to figure out how to do stuff and trying to figure out how to get like real jobs, quote unquote. And then through lucky circumstances, I guess, and a lot of hustling probably on my part, that's when I got the job at the Atlantic. So we moved to upstate New York at that time. And then I moved to New York City for that job. And I get, if I can like skip secretly to like another future question, probably about editorial, like it's a total fluke that my career has been in editorial for the most part. Because like, I never was like, I want to work at the Atlantic. Of course, when they reached out, I was like, oh my God, yes.
Yeah, sure.
Cool. Like,
Yeah.
I have to do this. I just never thought about it. And I don't have like a journalistic background or even really like a strong journalistic inclination.
Well, that's funny then.
Yeah,
I
it's
like
totally
looked at the work that you've done and I was like, wow. I mean, like there's just like a huge like through line of like this editorial style. That's interesting. So, and also don't devalue. There was a lot of hustling that you did, I'm sure.
There was a lot of hustling
to get that job. And so you said you moved to New York for that role.
Yeah.
Awesome. Cool.
I had moved up here with my husband. He was going to grad school up here. And then when I got that job offer, I actually like moved out of our apartment and like into a place in Brooklyn, left him here and was like coming back on weekends, like every other weekend. And then eventually they let me move remote full time. And that was in 2016 before it was cool. So
you're OG remote.
Yeah. I got to come back up and live with my partner again, which was really nice for me.
That is
for
nice.
him.
So going back to the editorial work, like how do you kind of balance that type of work too? Because it's like, I don't know, like was only working on like retirement, for example, like that's a lot of information. And it's also like, I don't know, kind of depressing for me because I'm like, am I ever going to retire?
Yeah, it's a bit of a bummer.
So like, do you feel like you've tried to find projects outside of that kind of work to like kind of balance both like maybe from a stylistic point of view, but also from like a content perspective?
Yeah, sometimes. I like having worked at Vox, it's really rigorous. So I've definitely limited the amount of like other freelance stuff that I'm working on, but I do some, and I just kind of choose pretty much shorter stuff. Like the last project that I worked on was the logo animation for the end slate of this game trailer announcement trailer called the Anacrusis. And like, that was really fun because when I worked at Secret Powers, that was like the work I was doing. And it was so different. It was, that was what was really different from the Atlantic and Vox stuff. And it was so like, a lot of the stuff we made was like really cheesy, but it was so fun. Like I would be adding all of these like graphical flares to like a JRPG mobile game, like footage app. And it was so fun, but just completely different. And getting to work in that space is really fun for me. So when I can, you know, if anybody's like animate this video game logo, I'm gonna be like, yes, like I love doing that. Or that's just great. Even doing like logo design. Sometimes I have a couple clients I work with where I'll just do like it's design or illustration, but it's always stuff that is more, I can do this in like a week, maybe, or 2 weeks or however long. And, you know, nothing that is like totally killing me.
Yeah. Well, kind of jumping to the Explained series. So we get clients all the time that kind of refer to like the Vox style, like more of an editorial style, or even the Explained series. Why do you think that they've been so successful, especially on a platform like Netflix? Like, I think it's really interesting that that type of content is so successful there, because like when I get on Netflix, I'm like, I want to watch a cooking show that's going to chill me out. Right. Like, but at the same time, they've been really successful. And I do think there's like this, clearly there's this kind of content gap for that more like educational kind of content. What do you think?
Yeah, I think, well, I will say up front too, like a lot of people have not heard of the show. So if I tell them like, this is what I do, people haven't seen it. Like, so I think it might be, you know, people who are oriented toward like knowing what Vox is and stuff like that, or like documentary people.
Yeah.
So, cause like it doesn't get suggested to a lot of my friends on Netflix at all. But I think schools show it a lot. Like I have heard that classrooms will assign the series, which makes sense. And like, I knew that people would do that even with my Atlantic videos. Like sometimes I'd get emails from professors being like, this was really cool. And I showed it to my class or whatever. And I was like, that's awesome.
That's great.
So I think that's a cool thing about it, is it really is just educational. So it's not necessarily like I'm going to binge it, but a teacher might just be like, okay, you know, we're money, watch this money series so we can like learn how the state of money today in the world and how it works. I think that's pretty cool. I think that is I'm learning that like I'm just too in the industry and that I'm a nerd and I like to learn about things. I think that's like the targeted demographic for these kind of videos. That's funny. How did you get involved with the Explained series? My art director, she's the art director now. She's don't know exactly how long she's been working on the show. Definitely since the second season, I think. Caressa Hauser. If I'm pronouncing her last name right. I don't know if I've said it out loud before, but she reached out to me when they were, she actually reached out to me about There's a Voting Explained miniseries that came out right before the election. I was still working at Secret Powers at that time, and I really loved my job and my coworkers, like the best people in the world. So I was like, no, I won't like, go to do this, like whatever thing. And then she followed up with me maybe a month or two later for the actual season 3, the voting miniseries, like 3 episodes. And then season 3 is, quite a bit like lengthier than that. And I was like, okay, I mean, it is really cool. When I was at the Atlantic, like everybody wanted to be Vox. I think I will do this.
That's awesome.
But I do think too, like not having intended to be an editorial motion designer, it's a very, very small world. So I think like once I was in it, it just makes it kind of easier to stay in it. And like, there just aren't that many of us, if that makes sense. So it's like a small pool of people. And I have noticed between my 2 different job experiences at the Atlantic and Vox that the type of work tends to be similar and the type of issues are similar and are probably pretty different than like challenges you run into with studio work. So I think people just like to be like, what you're getting into with editorial stuff. Like, it's going to get hairy and all like in these ways, whatever. We all kind of start swimming that same ecosystem forever now.
Well, what would you say as advice for someone who's like trying to get into that kind of like niche type of work?
A couple different things. I gave a workshop about this recently at MODE, which is like the Motion Design Educators Summit. And it was about kind of like, how do you take a paragraph of information like you might have in a documentary, something, and translate that into the storyboards for an animation. So it's all about the thought process of that. And the biggest thing that I took away from my own workshop was like, because you don't really think about it, I think, when you're actively working, but like if you're doing editorial, you need to know how to do almost everything. And also you need to know how to make it in a way that you can change it really fast, because that's the biggest thing, is that like, you will not get a big piece of voiceover and then just get to work on that for like 3 weeks. It will never happen. No matter how hard you pray, it'll be, here's an episode. And then 5 weeks later, the episode is completely different. So hopefully everything you've been working on the whole time up to that point, you can reuse and reconfigure up until the last possible minute. It's just really wild how dramatically stuff can change. And I think that's just the documentary aspect of it. So working with documentary producers, they don't know how animation works. Just like I don't know how to like edit or shoot at all. And documentary, everything changes all the time because you can do that with an edit. So the edit is constantly shifting around, which means like your stuff will get cut and then put back in and then move to the beginning and move to the end and then like lengthened and shortened. And then legal also will come in and be like, you can't say that or you can't use that. So a lot of it is like making as many assets as you can for a thing, and then just building your project file in such a loose way that you can just take all those things and reorganize them as fast as possible. And just like trying to be like work smart.
Not harder. Yeah, like, work smarter.
That's, true of everything, I think. But you kind of just want to have like general stuff. Something that comes up a lot is like putting stuff in a cell phone or putting stuff in a YouTube like frame. And like, then you'll just have that. And then once you work on something like this, you'll get really used to making a ton of different phones in different styles that match whatever style you're making, because you'll probably need one, or having some kind of pipeline in place for making maps really easily, which is a whole other thing. We have, I don't know where it came from actually, but we have an AEP that just has like all of the countries of the world in it. And we use that as our basis, because without that, I'd be like, how are we going to do this? Like, I don't know. Get all of these. So you just want to have those tools at your disposal as well.
Yeah, that's interesting. Well, as like a studio producer, the idea of things changing like that, like gives me anxiety and makes me, like, I mean, of course, clients can always be like, well, hey, guess what? You're halfway through, but the voiceover is changing, like that happens. But we try to be really like, okay, the script is approved. You're not changing it anymore.
Yeah.
So I kind of take that for granted. Yeah. Isn't a thing.
It doesn't happen.
That's great. Well, maybe I'm not cut out to be a documentary.
It's its own thing for sure.
What do you think about, we kind of talked about how your workflow might change working on that type of work, but what about the length? Like the Explained series, I was watching the one about retirement the other day and stressing about retiring. And it's like 20 minutes long, 19 minutes long. How do you, as you're getting started on the project, how does your mindset change versus like working on, a 30-second or a 60-second shorter piece of content?
Uh, this is interesting because I feel like it's so collaborative with our team of designers that I lean into that a lot more. And at least in my experience, I've been very used to not working with other people on shorter stuff, or like even at the Atlantic, like I owned those projects.
Mm-hmm.
So I had, I had feedback and notes and stuff, and I had to change that, but like no one else was really touching it. But for this one, it's almost, it's still stressful, but it's not as stressful as it could be, maybe because I know generally at a glance looking through the script, and we have a graphics tracker to like keep track of all the proposed animations during the time. And sorry, totally lost my train of thought. I can look at it and be like, okay, I know we're going to need this type of animation probably a few times.
Got it.
Or like even for the retirement one's a great example, because we had this like stool motif that was going throughout it, where it was like the stool is a metaphor for like the 3 different pillars of like what people base their retirement on. And so it was like, okay, anytime you can use that, do it. Like anytime, so you always have something to think back to. But then I just always know we have like Lynn is our junior animator, and then Cress is also working on the episodes with us and overseeing stuff. And like we all just can be like, hey, what do you think about this? Or you grab this animation, whatever. And it just feels a little bit less overwhelming, I guess, because of that. And like at the Atlantic, I couldn't be like, can you animate this? Because no one else was there to do it. So it's just me.
Yeah. Yeah. So how big are the teams generally that are working on one of those videos?
Including or like motion design wise, there's at least 2 of us, like I guess 3, because it would be Cressa, the animator, which in this case would be me, and then Lynn is also usually pretty free to like jump on different stuff. Sometimes we'll hire freelancers as needed, or if other people are sort of on a down week on their episode, not as busy, and we desperately need them. So there's like some flex, but it's basically 3 people. And then you're working with the producer who's masterminding the whole episode, and a handful of other people that sort of come and go. And like some of them too, they're like in every call, and I just like don't know what we're all like, what all of our like roles are. But like we have an archival team, because if you're putting in images and or like archival video clips, like historical stuff or stock footage, like they own all of that. So as the designers, we also can't just go to Getty and buy this thing and put it in. Like that needs to be reviewed and approved and ingested a particular way. So an interesting thing about that is it can get really hairy if you want to do a collage style. Like I wasn't here for that, but on the Voting Explained series, it was very collagey and using a lot of photographic elements in the design. And apparently that was kind of stressful to manage, because every single photographic element needed to be logged in a specific way. And you need to like make sure you can use it and get it from the approved source, and like tell the archival team so they can go pull the high-res files for you. And it's just very involved. So you also kind of try to be like, can I make this myself?
Yeah.
Like, what can I get away with?
Can I avoid all of that and do what I want to do?
And just make it easier, because then they're doing archival for the producers too, like not just for graphic stuff. So it's a lot. But they feel like pretty small teams. I don't know.
I mean,
there's like 50 people probably on the team as a whole entire thing.
Sure.
That's
but just from like a graphics standpoint, like you said, 3, like that is pretty wild. And
like
kudos to y'all. Yeah, that's wild. It's a lot of content.
It's so much. It can be a lot.
Yeah. I am impressed. Yeah, stressful, I'm sure. And we've kind of gone over some of these, but any that you haven't mentioned already, just in terms of like challenges on this series that you didn't anticipate.
I have had to work in really different ways than I thought I would. So I can't talk about super specifics or like the topics of the episodes that I've worked on that aren't out. But one of them is like a lot of green screening, which I have luckily had some experience. with. And the only school of motion class I've gotten to take it so far, hopefully not the last one, but was the VFX for motion one while I was at Secret Powers, because we did a lot of integrating graphics into footage and some just straight up like keying out of green screen. So I didn't have any background in that. And that was a great foundation for me. And now it's so much. Now I'm like, wow, I'm getting pretty good at this. I think I'll be able to, like, this is like officially in my wheelhouse now. I can do this after. But I did not expect to do it at all on this show. And even just some of the types of animation can be so different. And some episodes have a lot of character type stuff. Like the Money series had a lot of that. And some of them completely don't. And there's one in particular I worked on that is a lot more, it's not really abstract, but I used a lot of like really sort of basic 3D elements for it, but just figuring out how to work in that style. It was not like my natural style whatsoever, where I think if you can look at my website, it's like, you see, it's colorful, it's a lot of character stuff, a lot of editorial stuff, obviously, but just like working in like tonally simpler, but also maybe more like dark stuff is hard. Like that was challenging. Not the first time I've done it, but it's like, everything is just so different too. And sometimes like if you look at the older seasons of Explained, the topics vary so wildly. So some of it is quite serious, and then some of it is like athleisure explained. And the styles are always different for every episode. So like you just have to kind of be ready to do whatever they want, like whatever style you guys are feeling for this. Like I'm going to learn how to do it. Go.
Yeah. I mean, how do you mentally take that? We've talked a lot on past clubhouses about like balancing like imposter syndrome and like the idea of like not knowing how to do something and sort of like the fake it until you make it mentality. Like someone at Netflix is asking you to make this, you're gonna make it, you know? So like, how do you take that on? And there's this expectation that you don't want to like oversell that you can do something, but if you don't totally know how to do something, you're just like gonna figure it out, you know? How do you like balance that, either like mentally and then also like tactically? How, like literally, if you don't know how to do something, like what's your first move?
It's really tough. And I will say, actually, I think you should try your best and go, like I go into that conversation and I'm like, maybe what's the middle ground? Like you send me a reference. I know we can't do that. Can I figure out what you actually want, or like what you would be happy with? But then there have been times where I've had to be like, I see what you want and we can't do it. And I don't want to have that conversation. So like you try to avoid it and like do your best. But there was one particular time where the references were these like hyper detailed things that like we just genuinely don't have the time to even execute on this level. Like production wise, it doesn't really work. And it was just like, I totally see why you want this because it's awesome, but like it's just not realistic. So sometimes you just have to be confident when you're saying that. And then we can be like, okay, so what can we do that we'll all be happy with? Or, you know, are there other reference points that we can look at? But I do try to just psych myself up, or like, in a way, that's what's exciting to me about the job, is getting to do so much different stuff. So it can be a pro, like it's intimidating, but it can also be like, oh yeah, like I can try to do this.
You can try. Yeah.
Yeah. There was one episode that I worked on for this series where I was trying to replicate this certain kind of vintage illustration style, and I just couldn't nail it. And I mean, given enough time, maybe, but like we're moving quick, things are changing. Like these are a bunch of illustrated elements that need to be done. And so I just ended up going back and being like, okay, what if we do this type instead? Like, here's what I'm making. Could this work? And it does not look like the original reference, but it's what ended up going in the episode, and it worked well. So some of it is just a matter of finding that out along the way. And then you're like, okay, here's where we're at. We have X weeks left. Like, these are the animations, you know, how do we feel about this? And then hopefully getting approved to go forward with that.
Yeah, I think that's so important. And especially for freelancers or studios, like learning how to have those conversations with either like clients or internally, like we want to make things that people like that's literally our job. And so there's always that kind of trying to figure out what expectations versus reality are. And I think like all the times when maybe a project didn't go well or something happened, like expectations weren't clear on both sides. Yeah. So I think learning how to have those conversations is just so important. And it's not always an easy conversation to have. The client sends this like awesome 3D reference and they have like no budget. It's like, well,
Yeah,
we can do that if you have more money, or like, we can't do that, but we could do this type of mix of 2D and 3D. I think it's just something that you don't learn in art school, but that you inherently learn after, is how to have conversations like that really do make the difference in both the work and how smoothly a project goes.
Yeah. And I think it's really important to be able to say no, even though you don't want to. And like, people do give that advice to never say no. And I'm like, that's I say no to that. That's not good advice. Because sometimes you just have to. And I swear, I haven't had to have that many of these types of conversations where I'm like, literally, no, that's not possible, but it's happened. And I swear, generally, people like respect you more for it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I like, that could just be, your mileage may vary, and that's just like my own experience. But sometimes when I say that, I'm like, people are actually listening to me and they actually seem to trust that I know what I'm talking about. And it's like, it's because I'm being honest with you about what's possible. And I do think it's always important to be proactively trying to come up with a solution and be enthusiastic about it. Because there's a world of difference between being like, no, that's so ridiculous. Our budget isn't to the moon or whatever. But you could be like, that's really cool. What do you like about that? Here are the reasons that it straight up won't work like one-to-one, but maybe we can pursue something like this. Or, you seem to really be drawn to the hyper-realism of this. What are ways that we can replicate that? Maybe we could use photography instead of illustration and use stock instead, or, whatever, and be trying to find, like, bridge the gap, because it's like, you're all on the same team and you're all trying to find out how to make it awesome and how to make it work. So I really think just, being vocal that you're like, I'm on your side and like, we're going to figure this out, but also being realistic about what's achievable. That's kind of the best place to sit in that situation.
Yeah, it's like we're all design, and the crux of that is like the problem solving aspect of that versus like art doing whatever you want because you can. Like, we're problem solvers, right? And then also, to your point of like getting ahead of it, the proactivity is so important, because again, kind of always thinking as a producer, like always thinking a few steps ahead of where we are, to avoid anything that might come up as an issue. So always being ahead of what a potential problem might be is just so crucial. Yeah. Cool. Well, for those that have joined late, I probably should have done this sometime in the last 20 minutes, but we are chatting with Caitlin Cadieux. I will give everyone a few minutes if they wanted to raise your hand to ask a question. You can either ask Caitlin a question about some of the work that she's done. If you wanted to mention anything about our news, the Maxon combo subscription to cinema, or the portfolio piece we chatted about, which was Ivy's The Carrier, feel free to raise your hand now. Otherwise, I have a few questions we got on social media. So let me grab one of those while we wait. All right, here's one of the questions. What is the coolest thing about working for Vox on the Explained series?
That's a great question. The coolest thing? I really think it's just the variety. Honestly, too, it's very novel for me to be like, this is a Netflix show. Like, that's cool. That's my baby's first TV credit. And it feels good. Like, my parents are like very excited, and like that just feels so nice.
Oh yeah.
So that's
like, did
cool.
Your parents just send it to everyone when it first came out? Like,
yeah,
or like proud
mother-in-law. My mother-in-law will be like, our neighbor watched it and like, this is what she thought. And it's like really cute and nice. And it just feels good to be working on that. And the team is obviously really awesome. Just everybody's super talented and really helpful. I don't know what like, everybody's very supportive of each other getting the thing done, because it totally does get stressful. But generally, like the attitude is so upbeat for the most part that it's just nice. It's hard, but it's nice.
That's great. That's awesome. And are y'all all remote? Is that like a COVID thing or like a always thing?
Yeah, that's a COVID thing. I strongly suspect I would not have this job if it wasn't for COVID, which is a very, very weird, sad silver lining. But I think it was all in office, and like, I have no real intention to ever go back to New York City to live there. And so them going remote, I think, opened up some outdoors, but everybody is remote right now. There have sometimes been people going into the office in New York City for shoots and stuff like that, but way small scale, like nobody's
Sure.
going in regularly. So I've
Yeah.
never been to the office.
Oh, that's wild. Yeah.
Maybe
Yeah.
someday.
Yeah. Yeah. Someday in the future, fingers crossed. Yeah. Well, that's like one of the weird things about this last year is some of the silver linings that we've noticed, work that I think clients are realizing that like you don't need to be in a major city to work with to make a video or work with an agency partner. And so like we found work that we probably maybe wouldn't have gotten otherwise. And so it is, I think, important to like recognize those silver linings and like, how do we move forward?
Yeah.
I think it's just obviously a lot has changed because of the last year, but I don't see that going anywhere. So I do think that's a really good thing for both freelancers and studios, for everyone, really.
A remote lifestyle advocate, I'm very pro because I'm biased, but I feel like I am good at what I do and professional and can do stuff, but also remotely. And so it's nice to know, like, I can keep like doing my career and not have to worry about that quite as much.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, on that same topic, and because of the last year, how do you handle burnout? How do you not handle burnout?
Oh, this is like, and it was such a bad year for this because like I was telling you, my husband finished his PhD about a week ago. And so this past year has been very hard for all of us because those are brutal in normal times. And then I'm working and then it's the pandemic and all, it was just exhausting. I try really hard to not work. Like, obviously I do, I work hard at work, but it's like any chance you can have to not do it. And like, I don't know. I think this is one of those things that you just have to, like, it has to happen for you and you can't like reason your way to it. But like, there were days where I was like, I am literally going to sit on the couch and read on my phone for 12 hours and like, no one can stop me. But I just feel like sometimes if you're doing that all the time, it's bad, but sometimes you need it. And like, sometimes there's a reason that you are just like zonked out. And like, I played like 700 hours of Animal Crossing when it came out, which is nuts. Like, that's amazing. But that's what I was doing because it made me happy when
you survived a pandemic. Yeah.
Or like when Monster Hunter came out on the Switch recently, I never played those games, but I found them very fun when I started playing. So I was just playing it as soon as the day was over for like a week or whatever. I'm like, I'm just doing this only because I can't. Luckily, I don't have kids, so I don't have to, like, there are hours of my day that are just mine and I don't have other things to, but I do think it's important to have time to just goof off for like long periods of time. At least for me, I have always found that I sort of have a binge mindset when I'm feeling rough. And like, until I get that dedicated time to just zone out and play video games or whatever, like I'm going to feel weird. Like, you need the weekend off or whatever, like whenever you can get it is so important, which is very tough.
Yeah, totally. Okay, here's a question on binging stuff. Have you binged the Explained series?
Actually, I haven't. I've watched almost all of it, but not all of it. There are episodes here and there in the seasons that I haven't seen. But I can't binge stuff anymore though in watching. Like, video games, I'm good at doing that. But I actually feel like I can't, after the pandemic, I like stopped watching television really.
Oh, well,
it was hard. I think I couldn't, like, I also, I love to read and I have not been able to read a book in so long. And I don't know why. It just seemed like this weird side effect that I'm like, I can't get into this right now. I'm feeling too agitated or something. There's something about video games that's like engaging enough that I can sort of get sucked into that for hours. And everything
I can see that. It's like tactile too, like you're like doing something like physically,
you're like kind of thinking about it and like doing it, but you don't have to move really.
Seems like the best of both worlds for me. Let's see, we had another question. What is the most useful tool, product, or service to use that's not an obvious choice for motion designers?
Oh my God.
Yeah, I really like that question because I'm a process nerd.
Wow. The first thing I thought of, I don't know if this is cheating or not, because it's not, it's not a motion thing, but I bought a lifetime subscription to this like social media blocker. What's it called? I think it's called Freedom. But it's like on my computer and my phone, and it will sync up, and then I could just be like, for 1 hour, don't let me goof off. And then you can also add websites if you want to. So like you can put
certain things.
specific,
Yeah.
or if there's like one news website or something you go to too much, you can put that on there. And like
I need
that's
that.
it's yeah, I really like it, honestly, because sometimes, and then it's great because you'll try to go to Twitter. Like I'm always like, let's open TweetDeck again, even though I just closed it, and it'll just have like a pleasant green butterfly on the screen, like their logo, and it's like, you're free. You don't have to be here right now.
Oh, I like that it's not like, what are you doing? It's not like mad at you.
Yeah, no, it's like super chill.
Subtle.
Yeah, and like you can, if there's something like super terrible and you need to get on your Instagram right now or whatever, you can like log out of the app on your phone and get around it. But it's enough of a block that I find it really effective.
Yeah.
So as someone who I'm like entrenched and like, let's just go to this website. No, I will pay however much it was, like, to always have this tool so that I can't do that.
That's a good one. I don't know if it's the pandemic or just my brain getting older, but like I think I seriously have ADD now, and I don't know if it's just like the working from home and like the distractions of like home and life at the same time, and I'm just ping ponging around. But I just feel like I need like something like that, because otherwise I have like 42,000 tabs open with like all the different things I'm doing or projects, and then I'm just like, oh yeah, let me just like see what's happening on Twitter for the 47th
what
time.
What are people up to?
Yeah, like I have a lot to do. What are other people doing?
On a similar note, it's like, are people working right now? I should be, but I use a paper planner too, like the old school, like week on 2 pages, and everything in here is, you probably can't see it. None of you listening can see it yet, I think, but like it's all check boxes. Everything I put in my planner, even if it's just like, you're going to dinner at 6 p.m. Because like tomorrow I can check off that I did that and feel good about it. But like, I need to have this, because if I don't, I'll forget everything always. And it literally never leaves my side. It's always right here on the left side of my desk. And then, so I can open it up on Wednesday and be like, oh no, like Tuesday, I didn't do this thing.
I didn't eat dinner.
And like, oh, and then, cause like I need to do my laundry, and I see here, I wrote that in this morning and I haven't done it. So I need to do that. And I'll probably put a load in after this call, because I really need to do it.
Yeah.
And it's just helpful, because digital calendars just don't work for me. I'll never remember. And this way I can just see it, and I'm constantly reminding myself of things. And it's like the only thing that works for me. So I just up and down swear. Plus you can pick like a nice planner. I have a matching but slightly different journal. Picking these out every year is a highlight for me.
And it makes you happy. Well, I mean,
it's cute.
I feel like the best process tool or like checklist, whatever, is the best one is the one you use. So like, to your point, if like the digital kind of like to-do list doesn't work for you, like, that, and you don't try and like do something halfway and it not work. Secondly, when I used to work at an agency and we were hiring project managers, I used to joke that you could hire a project manager by asking them one simple question, whether or not, if they had a to-do list, they would retroactively put something they'd already done just to check it off. Because like, that is just like the epitome of my personality type, and kind of like that type A organized, like that was an easy yes or no.
Like take a shower after I have gotten out of the shower and then checked it off.
And you feel
and I'm like, with a thrill of success. I am winning. And the rare occasions, it genuinely is pretty rare that I have a multiple stuff on my to-do list and I check it all off. I feel so powerful. Like, I've group texted friends just to be like, you'll never guess, I checked off everything on my to-do list today. Like, and I feel so strong. I highly recommend it. It's a wonderful feeling.
That's great. Next on your list is take over the world. Nothing can stop you.
I'm going to try. How do I do that without remotely? Like,
yeah, good question. Well, we have about 5 minutes left. Wanted to give any other questions or a moment for people to add anything. Otherwise, I will ask one last question. What, if anything, are you working on? Anything new that we can keep our eyes open for? If you can tell us, if not, no worries.
I don't think I can give any kind of specifics, but I am working on season 3 of Box Explained, and it should be coming out soon-ish.
Awesome.
Soonish. I can't say when. I don't even know when for sure. I have a vague idea though. So soonish. And it will be cool. And I do think it still operates in the like we only post one episode a week. Like it's not just like all up on Box. So it'll be trickling out for quite some time, but
Awesome.
it'll be really exciting. I'm really proud of the stuff that, I mean, the team is so good. The episodes I didn't work on, I'm really proud of because they're really good. Like it's going to be cool. And if you like motion design, and you probably do.
Yeah.
I highly recommend it. It's
That's
very
great.
cool.
Awesome. Well, I have a client call. I just realized it too. So I'm going to wrap us up a little early, but Caitlin, thank you so much for chatting. If y'all haven't seen her work, please go to Netflix and check it out. Go to her website. It is Kate, C-A-I-T, Cadieux, CADIEUX.com. Go check out her podcast, which is great, by the way. We didn't even get to talk about it, but I started listening to it and it's awesome. Yeah. I feel
passionate about cartoons.
I feel like all of us probably have at some point in our life been passionate about cartoons. And I think it's a great like segue into like where we are now. So I think everyone should go check it out. Otherwise, thanks everyone for joining on your Fridays. I hope you all have a great weekend. Feel free to check in next week, and y'all have a good weekend.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Awesome. Thanks. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Hey, y'all. Thanks again for joining us for Mograph Lunch. As a reminder, this is just the first part of a longer conversation that happens every Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time on Clubhouse. We'll continue the NPG conversation as we talk about news, projects, and general industry advice. And then we'll open up the door on Clubhouse to answer questions live, interact with some of your peers, and get to know some of the folks in the industry. Follow the link below for more information, and we will see you next week.